Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new TEAM therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to our listeners locally and around the world. This is the Feeling Good podcast, episode 339. And today we have some really incredible personal work that David and Jill did in the Tuesday group with one of the really great therapists who's been a long-term member, Orly. But before we dive into that...
Dr. Orly.
Oh, Dr. Orly. Oh, I'm sorry. And thank you for correcting me. But before we dive into the personal work, which is very touching, Jill has an announcement to make.
Well, thanks, Rhonda. It's great to be with you guys, and I'm looking forward to everyone hearing the beautiful personal work that Orly did. And a spoiler alert, she worked on some overeating, emotional eating, a habit that she has struggled with for a long time. And so we wanted to let our listeners know that we have an upcoming workshop that David and I are going to be teaching on Friday, May 5th. That's called CBT for Habits and Addictions, Key Tools for Positive Change, where we're going to be teaching therapists many of the tools that you'll be seeing us use with Orly in the live work session, focusing on problems like overeating and overdrinking, procrastination, surfing the web too much, lots of kind of lifestyle habits and addictions that people struggle with. And we'll be teaching a lot of really exciting tools for overcoming resistance and dealing with motivation, as well as tools, really kind of practical tools for therapists to use with their patients with all sorts of habits and addictions. So we're excited to have people join us. It's live and online, and it's 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and it includes 7 CEs, and we'll do a combination of teaching and demonstrating, and then also our favorite part of the workshop, which is breaking people into breakout groups so you can actually practice with kind of help and mentorship from awesome helpers.
And I might add, the most important thing, we set these up for therapists to help your patients, but we all know what percentage of therapists secretly struggle with their own habits and addictions and
Absolutely.
nail biting and drinking and injecting heroin during therapy sessions. No, not that one. But we all have our little habits and addictions, and so you have a lot of chances to heal yourself. And when we do personal work with therapists, as we did with Orly, the idea is that you become dynamically and dramatically different in your therapeutic approach, because you can tell your patients, I know what that's like. I've been there, and it's going to be a joy to show you how to turn that around. And patients, clients, whatever you call them, human beings love that message.
Absolutely. And I should say then where people can go to register if they'd like to register. So it's posted on the Feeling Good Institute webpage, but you can get there directly by just going to www.feelinggoodpro.com.
www.feelinggoodpro, one word, P-R-O, feelinggoodpro.com.
Exactly.
And since this is on Zoom, people from all over the world can come.
Yes.
That's great.
Absolutely. And I do think that people will find, since all of us have habits that we want to break, that you will find tools to help your patients, but you'll definitely also find tools to help yourself.
Great. Thank you. And so now let's dive into the personal work that you did with Orly, Dr. Orly.
Yes, and today you'll hear part 1. It was a single session, an extended session, and you'll hear the empathy and the testing, T equals testing equals empathy. And then next week you'll hear the assessment of resistance and the methods and the amazing conclusion to the session and some follow-up as well. Cool. Great. Well, hello, everybody. Good evening. We're just waiting for the arrival of our beloved and brilliant and wonderful Jill Levitt, who's going to be my co-therapist tonight. And I want to welcome all of you. While we're waiting for Jill, I wanted to mention that we have certain ground rules. Oh, hi, Jill. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Some ground rules when we're doing personal work, because some of you might be here for the first time. I think there were some people on the waiting list for the group who were allowed to come tonight because we're doing the personal work. And that if we're going to be doing personal work with Orly in the spirit of growth as a therapist, and I hope that all of you have a chance to do personal work because it will vastly increase your skills and deepen your understanding of how team works and what it's like to be in the patient seat and what works and what doesn't work. In addition, although it's not really, ongoing therapy, we won't be doing further sessions with Orly. And if Orly has any issues that remain to be worked on, she can do them with her own therapist outside of the Tuesday group. But we should still view this as a real therapy session, and that means confidentiality. Now, if Orly decides to let us use this for a part 1 and a part 2 podcast, then, of course, you'd be free to talk about it with other people because it's intended as for the general public and as a learning tool. But if she does not make that decision, you have to keep this what happens entirely confidential with the same strictness and ethical concerns as if you were sitting in with your own patient on an actual therapy session. And if any of you aren't comfortable with that, it would be wise and mandatory, really, to leave the group tonight, because we can't continue in this very private and personal way unless we have full confidence in protecting Orly as well as all of you. When we do personal work, it's usually almost always really some of our best teaching and also can be an inspiration as well. So we're deeply indebted to Orly for opening the door and letting us into your inner thoughts and feelings. And we're going to start out by reviewing Orly's the testing that you did prior to the start of the group. Do you have any other announcements or anything to get us started, Jill?
No, that sounds good. Thanks, David.
Okay, great. Orly, we're really grateful to you and indebted to you. And you sent me the brief mood survey, which, most of you are hopefully familiar with and use it with all of your patients in all of your sessions. But your depression score was 3 out of 20, and that's just a minimal depression, but enough to make you less than thrilled with life, and you're feeling a little bit sad and down, a little bit discouraged, and a little loss of self-esteem. No suicidal thoughts or urges. Your anxiety is slightly higher than the depression, 5 out of 20. The depression was 3 out of 20. 5 is still minimal, but you're feeling moderately anxious, a little frightened, a little tense, a little nervous, but not worrying about things at all. There's 2 points on the anger scale. You're feeling somewhat frustrated and somewhat angry. The happiness scale, which also, like the others, goes from 0 to 20, is 16 out of 20, which is pretty darn happy, but there's still a little room for improvement. You're feeling a lot of happiness and hope, and you're feeling pretty worthwhile and pretty motivated, and extreme pleasure and satisfaction in life. But 4 of those categories could move up from a lot to extremely. So we hope we can make that happen tonight. And then in your relationship satisfaction with Maya, is that your daughter?
Yes.
Yes, I remember Maya, who I haven't met in person, but have met via Zoom or phone or something like that.
Yeah.
Riding to the airport with you from a workshop. And your relationship with her is only 15. So let me get my glasses on. And oh, I've got them on. No wonder I couldn't find them. Yeah, it's looks like 18 out of 30, and 30 is the best. And so 18 is showing a lot of room for improvement in terms of communication and openness. It's only 3 out of 6, somewhat. Resolving conflicts, you're somewhat dissatisfied. That's only 2 out of 6. Degree of affection and caring is 5 out of 6. You're moderately satisfied in that area. Intimacy and closeness and overall satisfaction are somewhat satisfied, 4 out of 6. And so we'll test or you again at the end of the session, Orly. If we work through a mood log, we'll also share those scores with everybody. But why don't you tell me and tell Jill and the group a little bit about yourself and the problem you want help with, which you're calling emotional eating. And I know that you've, in a sense, conquered an overweight problem through tremendous exercise and determination, which is a beautiful thing for you to be proud of. And I think you've gone on hikes, many day hikes, and that type of thing. But there's still some loose ends there that need and deserve treatment. And I think problems with habits and addictions is one of the most common problems that most human beings struggle with. We've had whole evenings in our group when we worked on habits and addictions, and it seemed like almost every single therapist had some issue, and like biting nails or drinking or, a whole variety of things. And there's always a couple of issues with habits and addictions. One of them is tools to help the person overcome the habit and addiction. Then the other is the background story. What are the problems in this person's life? What is upsetting to Orly, and what has been upsetting to Orly throughout your life? And that's where the whole team model comes in. And that's why we're treating Orly, we're treating a human being. We're not treating a problem. I never treat a problem or a diagnosis. And we like to follow the energy, and things often go in an totally unpredictable direction. So tell us kind of what's going on. We've done the T of TEAM, the testing, and we'll see if we can do a little bit of empathy at this point. So take it away, Orly, and Jill and I will see if we can empathize and find out what's up.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jill. Okay, I think that I should start at age 6 when I was molested by I could call it a house guest that was considered a family member. I grew up in Israel. You already know that my life was woven with 4 wars, and 1967 was the 6-day war. Israel was at a very glorious time, was winning over 4 Arabic nations in 6 days, conquering large amount of of land. And then people started to come, Jewish people started to come all over the world, from all over the world to support. And since I grew up on a farm, these Tunisian, French young men came, lived at my grandparents' house, and worked with us in the farm. He was very much liked. He was hardworking, which pleased my father, and kind of became an older brother figure. At a certain point, around the time that I was 6 years old, he took me to his bedroom and took off his pants and asked me to touch him. I do not remember any threats. I do not remember any pain. I do not remember anything beside the fact that it happened. I do have, and I put it on my daily mood log, I do have snippets of memories that sort of reminded me of that. Now, the other thing to acknowledge is that at the time, Israel was even younger. Israel is 75 years old now. And the issue of the Hebrew language was just evolving. So we didn't know as children something, the word of abuse did not really exist. There is a biblical word but it wasn't part of the everyday spoken language. Like kids today know certain things, so privacy, and consequently, I became an overeater. There is obesity in my family. I've asked 4 cousins that are obese. They did not have any sexual abuse, so there is some genetic thing going on. But apparently, I flipped from a very skinny and somewhat sick little girl. I always had asthma issues and bronchitis and stuff like that. I was very skinny. Between first and second grade, I just blew up. You just look at the pictures, and my go-to comfort was those unbelievable cookies that were sent our way by my grandmother. So she was famous for those cookies, and there was just free access to that. So I started to stuff my face. Throughout my childhood, I was just a fat kid. I was always very active and very social and somewhat, how would I say that? Somewhat, I don't know how to call myself, but like a fighter. So I always had criticism, and I always had whatever my mother would call, I was always too much. And I was always an excellent student, which was always my escape, right? Because if you're an excellent student, you don't have any problems. Mm-hmm. Not in Israel, and not by Jewish moms. And I just, as if there were no problems around. By the age of 12, I traveled with my parents to the Sinai Desert, which was kind of like the longest that one can drive in Israel, since it's such a small country. And we camped down there. And the next day, I was, my parents decided that my mom is not going to be able to climb whatever we call Mount Sinai, which is like over 2,000 stairs. And I don't know what happened there. My father met some people in the campground that he knew, and he sent me up with them. They kind of, didn't know them. I don't remember talking to them, but they sort of made sure I'm okay. You start climbing at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock, you get there for sunrise, and something happened. I don't know what it was. Later on, when I came to the States and I met with my 3 cousins who were Berkeley residents, I was told that I went to a spiritual experience. But I didn't know that. Something happened. I felt so connected to nature. I felt that sort of like from my feet, I connect to the roots of the plants that got into some kind of an Escher-like picture where everything is connected and I'm connected to nature and there's no end to my, to my fingers. They connect to the clouds. It sounds like a very enjoyable experience. It was not miserable, but it was not enjoyable. I just remember going down from that mountain, feeling so weird, feeling that something is different about me, that I cannot relate that experience to anybody, that black and white started to pop up in terms of my judgment and it just was something. And fast forward, I eventually ended up, I was in my military service. I was a park ranger. I was very lucky. So from that day on, I had one ally in life, and that was nature. I love the desert. I belong to the Society of Nature Protection, which is kind of like the Sierra Club in Israel. That's all I cared about. Eventually, I dropped out of high school and I went to work with archaeological excavation in the Sinai Desert. I kind of marched to my own drum. I told my parents how to raise me, and somehow they did. I don't think they were very happy, but since I always stood up to my academic goals, it was not, they never objected to that. I think they were happy to kind of get rid of me for a while. So after that, I was drafted to the military like everybody else in Israel, and I was lucky enough to serve as a park ranger in the desert section of Israel. And consequently, I started my undergrad degree at the Hebrew University with the goal of being a botanist.
Being a what?
At a certain botanist.
Oh, botany, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I cared about. And I specifically wanted to be a field botanist, which there were like 2 positions of that in Israel. So at a certain point toward my graduation, I decided to start practicing yoga because I don't know why. I just decided I have to do it. And I kind of really became very attached to more spiritual principles that kind of jived very well with my nature affiliation, so to speak, rather than any religious stuff. And, I grew up in a place where everybody was Jewish, and there's no separation between state and church in Israel. So consequently, I was to go to India. I was to go backpacking after school to India with a friend, but she decided she didn't have money. So I came to America and I went to the Shivananda Ashram in Grass Valley, California, to live there, to do a teacher training course. But then she told me she's not going. And I decided to backpack in South America with a man that I just met prior to going to Israel. And we did that for a year. We ended up back in the United States. We just didn't want to go back to Israel, but we never really planned to live here. I married him, had a child, and that marriage did not go well. So when my daughter was 9 months old, I decided to go to therapy because that was pretty much the only diet I haven't tried yet. So I thought, okay, that's an option too. And consequently, I decided to become a therapist. So this issue of being overweight and definitely having a binge eating disorder, have been with me all my life. I have lost a lot of weight and gained a lot of weight many, many times. And I'm talking about the amounts of 100 pounds, 120 pounds. Always, it's not news to anybody that you lose all that weight and then you gain all that weight. And in between, things got resolved for a while. But my main, as I told David, my main thing is always my relationship with myself, this feeling that something is wrong with me, that I think it took me to be 45 years old. One time, I think I went to OA meeting because it was like a school assignment. So I wanted to see that as a therapist. And that's where I learned that I have an eating disorder. And the only thing I know is that I was determined to not die a fat person. So I would start a diet every Monday and most of the time fail by Monday night, but sometimes it clicked. Fast forward in 2020, the end of 2020, middle of the pandemic, I was about to become 60 years old. And I didn't say that I divorced my husband when my daughter was 6 years old. Raised her in joint custody. A lot of difficulties. It was not an amicable divorce, and it took years and years and years. And she always used to blame me for breaking up the family. That's what she heard from her father. She would blame me for just about anything. And then like 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago, I was to turn to be 60 years old. I decided that I can't take it anymore again. And I started, with the help of my doctor and some medication support, I started again to lose weight. And about 6 months later, I lost about 50 pounds. So I stopped the medication and I started hiking, which was always my element. And by the end of that summer, I somehow found myself on a backpacking trip in the Sierra Nevada and climbing Mount Whitney. And I just felt that I don't need to die for my next reincarnation. It felt that I have incarnated. Everything changed. Everything changed. More weight came off. And then I was allowed in the team group. And I really felt that the universe is some kind of a universal spiritual help. I know that I'm not the only one here that feel that team is the closest to religion that they ever be.
That's right. I'm glad you said that. I feel that way too. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm extremely grateful, and I don't think that I ever had so much satisfaction of life and joy. I don't think I ever been such an effective therapist as I am. I even like myself a little bit.
Right.
So every time that I like myself, last year I came back from climbing Mount Whitney again from another side, and I was up for 2 days and whatever, and I walked into my house and said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with me today," and it was kind of funny. So I like to grapple with it, but I do. I don't think that there's something fundamentally wrong with me. I do think that there's a lot that I need to do. Whatever we did with relationship in the group have changed my life fundamentally again. I'm kind of like, I feel like a little thief. It's like we finish group, I run to implement it for my own life. And it changes everything. With everything else, so just to brag, I went down from size 16 to size 2. And oh, look at Dipti. She made it. And I, I'm able to really climb. It's kind of like a little kid. I'm totally bragging about it. So I'm training now for another 8,000 feet climb in 2 or 3 weeks. I started the John Muir Trail on my own last year, so it's my goal to finish the 217 miles in sections, hopefully this summer or probably next summer. There's too much snow. So it's like everything changed. And with all of that, I still engage in emotional eating. So it is an addiction. There is like a magnetic, chemical, electric, I don't know how you want to describe it. But when I'm excited, when I am upset, there's always food that pops to my mind. And it's never about, David always, when he does the triple paradox, it's about, sounds so good and stuff. I don't really care what I eat. And I don't really crave anything special. It's almost like I just need to feed that hole. I just need to medicate that unbearable feelings. And I really think that that's my obligation to myself. Personally, I see that as respect to David and to honor everything that he gave me. And I do have tears in my eyes because I truly feel that way. I do extend a lot of thanks to Jill as well, because David, I'm sorry, but when I grow up, I want to be like Jill. Not like you. She's prettier. There's nothing I can say. And and it's really my dream. I think that it's a little bit of a team niche that is like less. There are team therapists that are more specializing in anorexia, bulimia. Somehow I really hope that one day I will be able to help others. And I'm very terrified right now. And also doing the BMS, I was kind of aware of how my self-judgment, somebody said to me, if all fails, you could make it a profession. So I'm still grappling with that.
Wow, that was great, and we'll do a little empathy in just a minute. But you just said I'm terrified right now, and can you tell us a little bit more about that? What some of the thoughts are that you're having that make you feel terrified, and kind of how you're feeling inside? Tell us more about those emotions.
It's the same self-defeating belief that at the end of the day I don't belong. Something is really wrong with me. No matter what I do.
Slow down, because this is great. I'm writing it down. You should all write this down. I don't belong. Something is wrong with me. Whatever I do, and that's where I stopped you. Whatever I do.
Do you want me to write it down as well?
Well, I think you know them, and you've sent them on the mood logs.
Whatever I do, it's not good enough.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you can write them down if you have a mood log, just to add them to a mood log.
Maybe I won't. It's too much.
Yeah. Okay.
What else?
I don't belong. Something is wrong with me. Whatever I do is not good enough. What else?
Yeah. And to a degree, I missed most of my life over with. So
most of my life is over with. Mm-hmm. My life is over with. Yeah, and let me ask you another question here. These are great negative thoughts, and when those thoughts go through your mind, how strongly do you believe them? Like something is wrong with me.
I would say for 70%.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what I do is not good enough.
I don't know, 60%.
Good. Okay, and most of my life is over with.
Well, that depends what aspect of, it's like, if it's about hardcore hiking, it's kind of true. And in regard to my feeling of satisfaction, so I would say 60% right now.
60%. And again, before we go into the full-blown empathy, let me ask you a couple other questions here. And, we all know that you can use a downward arrow as in the methods part of your session or in the empathy part of your session. And I'll just do a little bit of that right now. And then I'll ask you to jump into the action, Jill.
I have one more.
Oh, yeah. Great.
How would I say that? My priority is to overcome my addiction to food and my emotional eating. This is my emotional, psychological, and personal priority right now. I owe it to myself, and I owe it to my daughter. And I have to do it. I don't know how. But I'm determined to do that.
Sure. Okay. Great. Now let me just ask you a question here. Let's say you tell yourself and have told yourself since you were a little girl that something is wrong with me. And let's say that something is wrong with me. Why would that be upsetting to me? What would that mean to me? Why would that be a problem? It sounds like a ridiculous question, but like what?
It's, just because it imposes pain.
There's something wrong with me that causes pain, but pain is an emotion, and so what is the thought that would create the pain if something's wrong with me?
It would mean that I would never be able to feel normal.
Oh, okay. And then would that be bad if it turned out that I'd never feel normal? What does that mean? And what you mean? I would always be depressed. I have negative emotions at every moment of every day, or I always feel like I'm not as good as other people, or what exactly are we saying?
No,
here?
It means that I failed in finding. I'm determined that there is a solution for that, and it's my responsibility to find it. And if I fail to do it, I kind of failed my existential task.
Okay, so if I fail to solve my eating addiction, I failed at my existential task. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Existential task. And now, just this might sound kind of ridiculous to you, but imagine that I'm a man from Mars, and I don't understand how things work on the surface of the Earth, and so let's say that I fail at my existential task. Is that a bad thing? What will happen to me if I fail at my existential task? Why would that be upsetting to me? Like if I go to Starbucks, will they refuse service? Because they say you're on a list of folks who
No, they would love to serve you the 700-calorie shake.
Okay. So what happens to me if I fail at my existential task?
I would be disappointed. I would feel like a failure.
That would mean I'm a failure?
Definitely.
We can't say I would feel like a failure because that's a feeling. But
yes, I will.
What you're saying is I will. That means I'm a failure. And can I ask one more? It seems kind of ridiculous, but it seems like no one would want to be a failure. But on Mars, we don't have this concept that people can be failures. So why would it be bad if I was a failure? What would that mean? Would then no one love me? I couldn't do fun things. I couldn't feel happiness. Everyone would scorn me and point at me or what, There's an article in comes out on CNN, Orly Marmer declared a failure. now what's going to happen?
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Because I can tell them about team therapy. No, it's just that right now I think that it's the human desire to feel satisfied, to feel that you made a dent in the world, that you were there for other people and mainly for yourself. I kind of feel that it's our personal responsibility to really be who we are in the best way. And I'd like to think that I'm able to do that. It's not, I don't think that I would not be granted a grave. Anyway, I don't want a grave. But I'm just saying, it's not anymore about proving that something is wrong with me, but I kind of like to feel that there is some goal and meaning and satisfaction in what I'm doing right now. David, I can't hear you. You are mute. You're muted.
I can't. I see David, but we can't hear you, David.
Muted.
Yeah, it looks like he's working on his headphones.
Yeah.
Okay, am I back now?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. Yes, my sound goes out. When you get old, you lose your hearing. When you get really old, like I am, you lose your microphone. So, well, you've done a great job there. That you have a kind of a core fear that you'll be a failure, that you won't make a dent, that you won't succeed in being the best way you can be. And we may go into this a little bit later too, but that's arguably another addiction that I can't be a failure. I have to make a dent, and we'll get on to these kinds of neat themes.
And I agree with it. I agree that because of my psychological makeup and the trauma that I've been through, I did become addicted to accomplishments. Mm-hmm. I did become addicted to the strength that I can exert. I happen to be a strong person, and I kind of become addicted to not care for myself. So I always jump to the pool, and sometimes it's great because the pool is full with water and it's warm, and sometimes there's no water there, and I just get the bath.
Sure.
So I agree that somehow I try to compensate myself with other, sort of other punishments rather than take care of myself.
Sure. I'm going to turn it over for a little bit to Jill, and maybe to go whatever direction you want, Jill, but it'd be nice if we could kind of summarize this story, starting with being molested by a house guest when I was 6, and just see if we can provide a little warmth and support for you, Orly.
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, Orly. Before you jump in, I feel so close to you and so grateful for you to open up and share all of this with us. Jill.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same, Orly, to start with. Just, I've known you through training groups and couple of pieces of live work over many years, right? Maybe like almost 10 years or something, in and out of different trainings and things like that. But, this does feel like a really unique opportunity to know you on such a more personal level. And I just already feel so close to you. And I just, from your story, I don't know, I just feel a lot of love and care for you. We would like to, before, diving into figuring out what we might specifically help you with tonight, want to kind of make sure that we're understanding you and connecting with you. So I heard you saying, and I kind of understand that you feel like this story of emotional eating probably dates back to when you were around 6 years old, and you had this really scary and traumatic and I'm sure confusing experience where you had this house guest that was visiting. You said like these Tunisian Frenchmen that would come and work at the farm, and kind of almost became like family members, like a big brother to you. And you remember one of these young men taking you to his bedroom and taking off his pants and asking you to touch him. And you said you really kind of feel like something switched at that point, that prior to that you were kind of a skinny kid, and you don't remember all the details, but you remember after that becoming an overeater. And you remember, you've looked at pictures and you kind of put together too this timeline of like skinny before this event and then kind of heavy after this event. And even then you remember, it sounds like kind of stuffing yourself with sweets.
Grandma's special cookies.
Yeah. Talked about your grandma's delicious cookies that she would make. And then, those were the words you used. I would stuff my face. So there was something about it then that wasn't just enjoying a delicious cookie, but, really kind of over consuming and overeating. And you kind of identified at that point going forward being fat. Like I was a fat girl is what you said, active and social, but always really heavy. And it sounds like you had some great strengths, as you do now, being an amazing student, right? And kind of for that reason, always being smart and such a good student. You're saying it appeared to everybody else that you had no problems because you kind of had that part of your life together. But I guess it sounds like the overeating feels like it was always a problem for you from that point forward. You also talked to us about this experience of the kind of spiritual enlightenment, climbing Mount Sinai. And I think you're in sharing that part of your story with us. That sounded more like it was about your connection to nature. Why I'm saying that is I didn't hear that as necessarily a part of like the development of overeating as much as a part of the development of this part of you that feels really passionate and connected to nature, kind of walks to the beat of your own drum, and just kind of part of your story of being spiritual, being connected to yoga, being active, loving being outside. And then I think you kind of skipped ahead to the, close to the present. I mean, you talked about getting married, having a daughter, having it not be a happy marriage, and divorcing and kind of raising your daughter, Maya, with joint custody. But that what I understood is that kind of from that point in your childhood forward, you always felt like there was something wrong with you. And you've always struggled with, gaining and losing weight. So it's been important to you at different times to lose weight. You've lost as much as 100 pounds, 120 pounds, and then struggled to keep it off and kind of gone back and forth. But then you shared with us that in 2020, when you were just turning 60, that you kind of, really started to take more seriously losing weight with the help of your doctor, with lots of hiking, and something switched in you where you've really lost a lot of weight and maintained it. It sounds like now for several years, kind of fell in love with hiking. And I do see, you're sounding to me and looking to me like just full of a lot of joy, a lot of satisfaction in your life right now. And at the same time, even it sounds like at this, I gather healthy weight, and you're active and healthy and feeling pretty happy in a lot of ways, you still are struggling with emotional overeating. And it sounds like feeling like this is, you've tackled so many things in your life. You've learned so much from the Tuesday group and from David and TEAM-CBT. And this is kind of like one more thing. I'm hearing it's kind of like maybe the last thing on your wish list of things to conquer and overcome, that you really want to feel like free of this emotional overeating, that it's not about that would taste so good. It's about feeling some intense emotions and then really wanting to avoid them. And your best coping strategy when you feel intense emotions is to kind of stuff them down with food. And you're wanting our help in figuring out if there's something you can do to change that. And
also the intensive emotions can be when I'm excited or when I'm upset.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily negative emotions, can be positive emotions too.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that I'm not surprised that I neglected to mention that I never talked to my parents about it, about my molestation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel not loved as a kid, but I do think that I had some attachments issues with my mother, who had me and twin boys within a year and a half, and definitely had postpartum depression. And so over the years, my connection with her, my mother is a very loving person, but very shy and very suppressing of her feeling. We used to call her the big suppressor in Hebrew.
Yeah.
So I was a problem for her. I always just challenged her, and it was hard for her. So, and until today, I never told them. I literally, when I was an adult and I already knew about it, and I told my siblings about it, and I told childhood friends and whatever, and my other friends, I never told them about it because I never really trusted that even now they would feel empathy to me. And I said, I'm not taking that chance.
You told your friends, but not your parents. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes. And it's said to me that, but as you heard about, the statement of my father before, I think it was a good decision. And the other addiction that came to mind, or self-defeating belief, is I think that deep down, I think that, I don't know how to phrase it, but maybe that I am unlovable. I don't feel that I ever had a loving relationship. And it may be too late.
No, that's important too.
Orly, I wanted to also ask you, I mean, it sounds like what you're adding here about like that you hadn't told your parents about the molestation, but also I did hear you sprinkle this throughout this piece of like, you have always felt like you are kind of like too much, like you're kind of intense and you're kind of, I don't know if this was the word, but over the top, or like there's something kind of a lot about you. These are your words, right? And that was almost like too much for your mom. She was kind of shy and maybe inhibited, and also what was the word you used about not like suppressed her feelings, and you were maybe, had a lot of feelings. And so there was something there. It was hard for you maybe to have what felt like a stable and loving relationship with her, even though you said she was a very loving person. And it sounds like there's conflicting feelings there. Like on the one hand, you certainly did feel loved by both of your parents. And on the other hand, there was something that felt like you weren't good enough or you were too much. And so you didn't feel like consistently attached. Am I getting that right?
I think so. As I said, I think that with their own problems and limitation, I was not intentionally hurt by them or physically hurt by them. I mean, they did what they can as people. There was nothing against me that I ever felt. But I always felt that I need to take care of myself. I mean, I need to decide for myself. I didn't feel that I can go to them and get an advice or support.
Yeah.
So that
you also shared with us, just at the end of your narrative, you shared with us that you, that this eating feels like a need to sort of feed yourself, to medicate yourself, to kind of get rid of whatever the intense emotions are, and that you have a lot of negative thoughts around, like, I don't belong and whatever I do is not good enough, and some feelings and thoughts about being a failure. So it sounds like you're sharing with us kind of some negative, like low self-esteem kinds of thoughts and feelings, and then also sharing with us this kind of behavior of binge eating when these intense emotions come up, whether they're positive or negative. And those would be some of the things that you might be wanting to work with us on today. And I just want to say again, I feel appreciative and grateful that you're sharing so much. And I can imagine that you feel both, as you've shared, excited and eager, but also kind of scared to share so much of yourself with us and to open yourself up like this. How am I doing at sort of understanding you and connecting with you?
Yeah, great. I definitely feel understood and supported.
And when you're thinking back on that abuse situation with the fellow who molested you, and you sent a daily mood log, and thinking back on it, you were feeling 75% depressed, 100% frightened, 50% ashamed, 100% on all of the inferior, worthless, inadequate, defective, and incompetent. Also 100% on lonely, unloved, unwanted, rejected, abandoned. Embarrassed and self-conscious, 90%. Hopeless and despairing, 100%. Defeated, 100%. Angry and resentful, 100%. And disappointed, 100%. And the reason I'm reading that is because you're incredibly articulate, and you're kind of fun and easy to talk to, and are articulate and clear, and seem, kind of happy and laughing at times. But this degree of negative feelings is, almost beyond human comprehension. Most of these emotions are 100%. And it means that inwardly, at least some of the time, you're feeling just horrible. Is that fair? Is that correct?
I think so. So I was kind of not confused, but because when I did the daily mood log, I sort of vacillated between nowadays and back then.
Yeah, oh, sure, yeah.
And I can't recall how I felt. And mainly, as I said, I didn't know that I was molested.
Yeah.
I didn't threatened. I was not in any physical pain and definitely not emotional pain because I didn't know what it was anyway. So, when I think back, I think it's quite devastating because I didn't know what happened. And as the years passed by and I didn't know that this is something that can really affect you, I was sort of like, it was only when I went to therapy, after my daughter was born, one day I had a dream about her, and I came and I said to my therapist, I had this dream about my daughter, and I want to tell you that I was molested at age 6. That's all that came up. I need to tell you. So, and he said, you were molested. I didn't know the name of it. And with the years, I also used to blame myself. I'm like, you were not in pain. Nobody threatened you. People go through horrible things. Maybe you're not even entitled to feel, to assign all this blame to this event. Maybe it's not even a trauma.
So I'm not entitled to feel traumatized.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Until today, I don't even know if it's qualified PTSD. I keep thinking about it, although I think it does. But then I'm like, how can I claim to have that when other people have been through torture?
Sure. So you don't really even give yourself permission to be upset about it and thinking it wasn't bad enough and it was no physical pain and I wasn't threatened and so I shouldn't be having these kinds of feelings.
And that was another judgmental statement toward myself when I said, it wasn't such a horrible trauma, and yet you need to be 260 pounds. I mean, yeah. I didn't even give myself permission to be as obese as I was. Even that's something that I was not okay with.
And it sounds like there's a part of you that really wants to be loved and feels unlovable. And on the one hand, that's made you incredibly strong and independent and resilient. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's kind of robbed you of feeling really close and intimate and warm with people. And that whenever you get strong feelings of excitement or get upset, you're afraid of those emotions and kind of eat to subdue them. And just one last question. What are you afraid of there with those emotions? What's the worst that could happen? Because on Mars, we're not worried about strong emotions. And what is it that would happen to you if you have incredibly strong emotions and you don't subdue them with eating?
That's a good question. Earlier in life, I remember that I was afraid that I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm. Because of Mount Sinai experience, the spiritual experience.
In my 20s, when I was binging, I was, again.
You asked her what was she afraid would happen if she had these intense emotions, and she was kind of saying that you're saying that I was crazy, like that it would mean that I was crazy. Is that what you're saying, Orly?
Yes. In my 20s, I was afraid that I'm crazy. I'm not afraid of that right now, but I'm afraid, maybe I'm afraid that someday the ultimate proof that I'm really not lovable would surface, This is my biggest fear, that,
Okay, so if I have strong emotions, then I'll be unlovable. I don't know if you were saying that.
Yes, if I have strong emotion, I will be unlovable. I will be rejected. I will be alone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along with the I'm too much, right? Like I'm too much, right? So that's like if I have strong emotions, I'm too much. I'll be unlovable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how would you grade Jill and David in terms of understanding how you're thinking and feeling, as well as accepting you?
Oh, no, definitely an A. I feel completely understood and respected, and I do feel loved right now.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Therapy's really quick.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.